Hello and welcome to Brad's weekly update. I think this is the eighth one. I don't know, but we should get right into it because we have two big things to deal with today. First of all, I went over to Krispy Scream and picked up their new Halloween set of donuts. I guess they're spellbook themed, witch themed. We're gonna crack into these and honestly, I'm recording this a little bit earlier than I was hoping, but my family's bugging me to they want to get into the donuts, and I didn't want to record the video with the box half eaten. So we're gonna open those up in a second, take a look at them, try one or two. But first we got to talk about Metroid Dread. It's a big week. Metroid Dread is a big game. Y'all know I'm a big Metroid fan. I got Metroid. I mean, I've been talking about Metroid since we've started this damn podcast 13 years ago. So honestly, I could probably ramble all day about Metroid Dread, and I don't want to do that, especially because I don't really want to give any sort of final conclusive thoughts before I finish the game. I have played about 10 hours, but I kind of play those games pretty like exhaustively, so I probably still have a little, maybe twice that, honestly, to go. I think I'm about 50% of the items, but I'm the kind of guy who every time I get a power up, I want to explore the whole fucking world again before I move on. So it takes me a long time to get through a Metroid game. But again, I don't want to do final thoughts. There's a lot of baggage with this one, especially because it's developed by Mercury Steam, the studio that destroyed Castlevania, which is another one of my favorite franchises. So what I'm going to do today is I have a list of 5 things I'm really enjoying about this new game and 5 things that I'm not happy about. And then maybe next week I'll give my final thoughts on the game. So let's get started because I don't want this to be too long. It's probably going to be long, but we don't want it to be too long. First thing I like about the game is it's Metroid. I know that sounds silly, but Metroid's been gone for a very long time. And I know there's a lot of like Metroid style indie games and whatnot out there, but it's just not the same. Metroid being back is a huge thing for me because Metroid is unique. It's distinct. It's good. I love, Samus has cool, unique power-ups. The game is about exploration and finding secrets, and like exploration and secrets are like my favorite thing in games. I love Metroid. I'm glad it's back. This is still very much a Metroid game. I think honestly, Mercury Steam having their first Metroid game be that remake of the second game was a really good idea because it means they couldn't go so out there and turn it into a God of War game, right? They had to make a Metroid game. And I think that Metroid Dread is sort of just an evolution of that game, which was okay, that they did last time. So it's still very much in the Metroid mold, and that's good because Metroid is good and I love Metroid. The second thing I really am enjoying, which I do credit to Mercury Steam for sure, is the way the game controls and plays is great. It's so smooth, it's so fast and fluid, and controlling Samus is just, honestly, it's really great. She has that new slide move, and it's just sort of an extension of the fact that she's already like fast, and now she can like traverse narrow spaces like rather quickly, which is, it's just a joy to control. And moving around quickly and fluidly is very important because my third favorite thing about this game, or I guess these aren't really ranked, but the third thing I want to bring up is that the hook, I guess the gimmick for this game is that you run into these robots called Emmys, and they're sort of like these unkillable robots for the most part, where if they get a hold of you, you're dead for the most part instantly. So it's this very like serious, real threat, and you have to use all your abilities. You have to just, get around, figure out ways to get around them, and they give you some tools, but usually it's just about moving fast and quickly and fluidly through the environment. And luckily, the controls support that. And I just think that the Emmys are a cool evolution of the stuff they were doing with SAX in Metroid Fusion and some of the stealthy Zero Suit stuff that they were doing in Zero Mission. And this is a cool, like, systems mechanics driven evolution of that. And I think it works really well. The Emmy zones are pretty intense. And I guess the fourth thing I really like about this game, I guess it's more of a credit to their last game, but I really like the counter mechanic. You know, it's one thing I didn't think I was really gonna like going into Samus Returns. They bring it back here. It feels even faster here. It's more fluid here. You can do it while you're sliding and jumping, and it just feels really badass when you pull it off. And you know, I think there's some like interesting enemy types that really support it. There's always going to be that flying enemy that rushes at you, but then there's some other cool ideas that have like a pretty interesting twist on the counter, and it just feels good to do. Maybe this is more about the controls, but I just want to give a thumbs up to the counter move. I do really like it. And fifth, I just want to say I appreciate that the game feels difficult, especially the bosses. I always worry about like a modern day Nintendo game being a little too easy. This game's not really pulling its punches. It is challenging in terms of combat, challenging in terms of bosses, and challenging in terms of, you know, the secrets and stuff. They're really still tricky, and I feel like that's really important as well. You know, a lot of Metroidvanias have puzzles and secrets, and honestly sometimes it's too easy, but here it's pretty cool. But let's get to, what are we at, 5 minutes? We're good. 5 things I don't really like about this game, and the first one's a big one. Did I say that ultimately I am really enjoying this game, so I don't want people to take this the wrong way. The first thing is I don't really like the actual world of the game as much as I do some of the other Metroid games in the series. I think it's very big, which is good, but it is very like, how should I say this? The areas, they lacked like a visual distinctness. I feel like, especially because there's a lot of Emmy zones, and when you clear out an Emmy zone, it just becomes a big part of the area that you're in that looks the same as all the other Emmy zones, and that's such a large portion of the map. And even though you're kind of jumping back between like area and area, it's hard to get like a kind of a distinct feel that you get from some of the best Metroid. Like take Metroid Prime, right? Like you're not going to confuse, you know, Talon Overworld with the Phendrana Drifts, or like the, you know, the sunken, you know, space frigate or whatever, right? Those are like very distinct, memorable areas, and I feel like distinct, memorable areas is such a big part of a Metroid game, and that stuff's a little lacking here, and I find that kind of frustrating, because that's honestly one of the highlights of the series. And you compound that with the fact that with the way the world is set up is you're bouncing between these areas a lot, and they use teleporters. And I don't know if the Metroid games ever really used teleporters per se. There's always a lot of like elevators, but what happens is you're in one area and you'll find a teleporter that takes you to another completely random area, and you're using these a lot. And what happens is, like, I find myself kind of like not really being able to like put together like the map in my head, right? Like I rely on the map screen a lot because of these teleporters. It becomes convoluted, more convoluted than it needs to be, because I'm just teleporting all over the place, and I'm like, I don't know where the fuck I am. Honestly, at any given point, if you put me in on the map of this game, I don't know if I could tell you really where I was. That's how confusing it can be sometimes, and that does you know, lead to like getting lost and stuff, right? Because the map is so big, because you teleport around all over the place. Sometimes it's hard to read the signs that the game's trying to tell you of, like, here's the critical path, especially when you're going back to explore and like open doors and get power-ups every time you get an upgrade, like the way I do. Sometimes kind of finding the right place to go is confusing in this world, because of, I think, the way it's designed, because of the lack of distinct areas, because of the teleporters. And I've played a lot of Metroidvanias, and I've played a lot of Metroid games specifically, and I feel like I'm scratching my head way more than I'm used to, and I think it has to do with the way the world's designed it. And honestly, maybe the map screen itself. The map screen, they put so much information on the map screen that when you look at it, it's just like information overload, and it's hard to parse. I have a hard time looking at that map and going, oh, well, I should go here. While in the older games, the map was more like abstracted, and, oh, well, that blue square isn't filled in all the way, that's probably where I need to go. Or like dead ends were a lot more obvious because the map was a lot more abstracted as well. Here, it's just like, it's exhausting looking at the map screen sometimes, honestly. It's something that has improved the more I played it, because I'm just getting used to the vocabulary of the UI, if you will. But at first, I was definitely, you know, getting kind of frustrated with it. Two. I feel like I have to justify like negatives more often because people are like already shaking their fists, and that tends to be why I talk more about the negatives of that I'm experiencing in a game. But part of the reason that the world structure and the teleporters is an issue for me is the number two problem I'm having with this game is that the load times, especially in these teleporters, take so fucking long. You know, if they just had the thing they wanted to do be in the area I was already in instead of me having to teleport to a completely different area, I wouldn't have to deal with this huge loading screen. And I've dealt with loading screens my whole life, but you know, it's really frustrating here because I just want to explore the world. I want to go back and get power-ups, but I know I'm gonna have to go through like 3 or 4 of these really long loading screens, and it's really kind of dragging things down. Third negative is I don't think the music and atmosphere is up to snuff for a Metroid game. And this is the issue I think I had with Samus Returns, but no standout music here. In fact, some of the music in some of the areas, I honestly I get a little annoying to me. Like I think some of it's bad. And, you know, again, good music goes hand in hand with Metroid. So for the music to be kind of not great is frustrating for me. And a lot of that plays into the atmosphere. You know, if the music's not good, if there's not a lot of like cool, unique visual distinctness, you know, the alienness that you see in a lot of areas in a Metroid game, a lot of that's gone. That means, you know, I'm not getting the same sense of atmosphere that I expect from a Metroid game. The one exception is like maybe the Emmy zones. When there's an Emmy out there, it is pretty like the sense of dread and atmosphere is pretty good there. But once that Emmy's gone, or once you're in another part of the world, it's just not really all that very atmospheric. And finally, a couple more nitpicks because I need a 4 and 5. I am enjoying this game. Is I think the new powers are not really all that memorable. The ones, so Samus is famous for having like some pretty iconic powers, right? Morph ball bomb. You know, the shine spark is one of the greatest power ups of all time in any video game, I'd argue, right? But some of the new ones they added in this game, like I just got the storm missiles, and that just seems whatever. Like it only exists to open a particular kind of door. It's kind of clunky in combat. The dash is one they showed off in trailers a bunch, and I most of the time I honestly forget that I even have it. It just doesn't feel as cool or iconic as the stuff that Samus typically, you know, has. You know, if Mercury Steam made one iconic power, it's that the counter that they had in Samus Returns, and that's back, and that's why it was on my likes list. But my dislikes is everything else. And finally, again, a small nitpick is I just think the Emmy design, the gameplay-wise, the design of the Emmy, fucking awesome, right? But visually, it looks kind of like a generic robot, and that sucks, right? Because you expect really iconic enemy designs from a Metroid game, and this feels like it could be in any game. And then they mix it up a little bit by changing the colors, they just change like a flat primary color, like, oh, this one's yellow and this one's blue, and it feels like something they added late in development or some shit, because it almost feels slapped on, literally. And so I don't know, I just don't like the look of the Emmys. You know, I didn't even buy those amiibos because I think it looks so stupid. But again, that's the final nitpick. That's 5 things I like, 5 things I don't like about Metroid Dread. We've been going so long. Let's eat these fucking donuts. All right. Spellbook. Sorry it's so long. This has to go on the podcast. Oh man, it's like a book and I'm ripping it open. That's sad. All right, what do we got here? What are we working with? The lighting here is not great. All right, we got. Okay, I'll just hold these up. Ooh, this one's cool. I already like this one. Oh, and it's like a cake donut. They're like little cauldrons. You see that? And there's a little, what is that, like a spoon, a stir? What do you call the thing that you stir food with in a cauldron? I don't know. That's cool. I like that one. This one's just an orange donut with some sprinkles. Very Halloween-y. I like it. We have a witch's broom. This is cool. I don't know how I feel about pretzels on donuts. I'll probably take those off, but that looks cool. I like that. And finally, we have a very cool black cat. Very Halloween-y. I love Halloween. It's the best holiday. It's my favorite holiday. Let's get into these donuts. Let me try this cauldron, because I love a good like a glazed cake donut, like a buttermilk or a sour cream. Let's try. Although, I'm remembering, not my favorite from like Krispy Kreme. I have some goo coming from the bottom. Let's, that messy. Not bad. Not bad. Probably not going to eat the pretzel. Let's take one more bite of these, and we got to end this, or Nick's going to kill me. I don't know what's on this, the fur of the cat on this black cat. Looks kind of like caviar. I doubt it's caviar. We'll take a bite of this one and then just end this shit. Thanks for listening to my thoughts on Metroid. But, you know, I'm not on the podcast. I got to get this shit out. All right, let's take a bite. It's caviar. No, I'm just kidding. Oh, some sort of chocolate sprinkle. My tongue is black. All right, y'all have a good week.